Let me ask you a question. What are some things that you can do to improve on to maximize your chances of achieving your end goal? Now, if you're watching this channel, your end goal is to probably get on a new club, high school, college, or professional team. And you might have answered to yourself that you want to improve your fitness, dribbling, shooting, passing, whatever it is. But what about your mental game? Let me tell you a story about how I almost gave up on my end goal after college because of the fear in my own head, and how this experience could help improve your performance on and off the field. Alright guys, so I'm going to do this session, and afterwards I'm going to tell you guys how I overcame certain mental and physical obstacles in my young playing football career to help me out to where I am today. Alright, so I wanted to talk today about the mental side of soccer, a skill that is most often overlooked and not trained enough. I'm not going to sit here and act like I know it all. I'm not a professional in this area. I'm just going based off of my experience and my opinions, that hopefully this story can help you on your journey. Also, this could be one of my most important and meaningful videos to date, so if you could smash that like button so that YouTube can make it visible to more players, I'd really appreciate it. Alright, so let's take it back to when I first started club soccer. I made the C team my first year, so I was an average player at best. But I had a great group of teammates and a great coach that I could grow with. My problem at that age is that I really didn't do a ton of individual training. I didn't know what exercises were best. I didn't even know my own potential, so I had no idea where to start. I was on the C team for 2 seasons until my U13 season when I made the B team, and that was solely based off of team trainings. I wasn't even into individual training at that point. I just keep looking back and thinking if I really did take individual training serious, where would that have taken me? The B team was a good experience for me, and I feel like I progressed pretty fast, but I still had no idea how much I needed to improve and how to improve on my own. The following year was a defining moment for me in my young playing career because the Colorado Rapids Academy was just beginning, and there was a lot of hype around getting in young, being groomed to becoming a professional player at the club. But the reality is only a few fit into that system. So I went to go try out for the Colorado Rapids Academy at U14, and I actually made the team. I ended up making the highest team in my age group. I was so excited and proud of myself in that moment, but little did I know that this was going to be the best and worst year for me mentally. So that year, it was extremely difficult for me to find playing time. I was easily one of the worst there skill-wise, and I sat the bench most games. The positive side of that was that these were good players, and I got to train with these good players day in and day out, and that pushed me outside of my comfort zone, and that challenged me to get better. But the negative side was that I knew I was one of the worst players there, and I knew that I needed to improve a lot. So that made me doubt my abilities, and my confidence suffered from that a ton. Now, I'm sure you've all had a time where one bad mistake threw you off in a game, you don't feel right before a game, and your performance suffers, or you just don't feel confident in your abilities overall. This is what was happening to me. Now that led to me being nervous in practice because I wanted to try and impress the coach and my teammates, and of course I did that in matches where I wouldn't feel right and I'd make mistakes that I knew I could fix. It's just I was overthinking a lot of things and I wasn't playing for myself. So ultimately, I suffered. I was too worried about letting my teammates down with my mistakes or what my coach thought in every single moment of play that I was doing. I felt as though I didn't belong. After that season, I ended up going back to the same club that I was at before, and I remember thinking before the tryouts, even though my confidence was low at the time, that I was playing at a high level the year before. So I went into the tryouts and I just had fun. I didn't want to think about anything or anyone else, and I didn't know it at the time, but this was a defining moment for me as well. I was able to control my emotions and I was able to enjoy the game. I was able to play for myself. I ended up making the A team for my age group at U15. This mindset actually carried over for the next 2 seasons, and I knew I still had to improve, and I desperately wanted to get to the level of my previous teammates at the Rapids Academy. So I started training a lot more individually at ages 14 and 15, which is actually pretty late. Alright, so next year I was going into high school and I ended up making the JV team my freshman year. I really wasn't a standout player that year, even though I did start to take my individual training more seriously. I still needed time to develop. I was very small back then, and some players on varsity were considerably bigger than I was, so I had to develop physically, which was out of my control. A lot of times we have so many things going on in our head, and most of the time it's things that we cannot control. What was helping me here was I just put my head down and I put in consistent work. I had a lot of catching up to do, but I was feeling more and more confident with every training session. I did a ton of work the following summer in the gym and on the field, and I felt like I was ready to make varsity my sophomore year. But again, I made JV, and it crushed me a little bit because of how much work I was putting in individually. We had a very good varsity team at Eagle Crest that year, and I felt like I belonged. It turns out it was just another lesson. Sometimes you think you're ready for something, but life tells you that you're not. Nobody owed me anything. Even though I was putting in so much individual work, I still wasn't good enough to make the varsity team. It was like I was being tested, like life was saying, how much do you really want it? It was a little bit different this year though. I was standing out a little bit more, and I got called up for some varsity games to sit on the bench. So I was developing on and off the field, and my confidence was growing. Junior year, I hit a growth spurt and I grew like 6 inches over the summer. It was insane. I was still improving individually, and I finally made varsity my junior year of high school. We had a pretty good season, but we missed out on playoffs that year. Senior year is where all my individual training in the gym and on the field came together. We had a fantastic year as a team, making the semifinals of playoffs, but ultimately losing to Cherry Creek 2-1 in the semifinals of playoffs. I had a great year individually with 10 goals, 18 assists, setting some records for most assists in a game with 5, most assists in a season with 18, most points in a season with 23. So individually, my confidence was at an all-time high. Took all that time from ages 14 to 18 to feel pretty confident in myself. I even got recruited for college that year, committing to a Division II school called Adams State University. My individual training had me ready for a college soccer scholarship. So at this point, I knew my individual training had a lot to do with me being here. Every time I went to the gym or had a training session, I was feeling stronger and more confident. I really didn't pay attention to this aspect, but I was training my mind as well to put in the hard work and improve consistently, to push and challenge myself to be better every single day. And that's the toughest thing to realize. Nobody is going to put in that work for you. If you really want something, you have to go and get it. Some days you'll feel like you really don't want to do anything, but those are the days that really count. Do your habits help to get you out of a negative mindset and push you forward? Or do you listen to that little voice in your head saying that it's okay, you can be lazy, you can skip this training session? So I was really excited for college season. I had good conversations with the head coach, and the players there were pretty good, and I knew that they could challenge the level that I was currently at. And going to college, you get all new experiences away from your friends and your family that you've had your whole life. It's a big change in your life, and it's difficult mentally to cope with all the pressures of school and sport. But I did well. At this point, I had a pretty positive mindset, and as a freshman, I was playing in most games and coming in off the bench. I felt good about the progress I was making on and off the field. But of course, life has a funny sense of humor, and my sophomore year, I ended up breaking my ankle in preseason, and just as I was feeling strong and confident in my abilities, my season gets ripped away from me. And I'm sure most of you have had injury setbacks or currently are experiencing an injury setback, and the best thing obviously is just to stay positive. I knew I could not magically fix my ankle. I knew I had to put in the time and the rehab to get this thing better. So I spent a lot of time in the gym. Instead of being negative and saying, woe is me, I did actually most of my own rehab, and I knew I'd come back strong and confident in my abilities. Junior year, I came back, I was healthy, strong, I was ready to go. I came back, I was a starter for the team. We didn't have the best of years, but I was happy to finish a full season. So senior year, just like in high school, was my best season. All that time training alone in the gym and on the field had added up to produce a pretty good season of 7 goals and 5 assists. And I became the only men's player in Adams State history to receive all conference awards. It was a huge accomplishment for me. We had a great conference, but as a school, as a team, we weren't the best team in our conference considering the other teams. I was just happy to have such a good season and end off with a good team. So to have this good of a season was special. I felt as though I left the program better than when I found it, and I was feeling so confident that I even went to an open tryout for the Fort Lauderdale Strikers in December of 2016. And I had a great tryout. There were about 5 teams of players, so about 60 players in total, which is on the small side for open tryouts. And we played 11v11 the whole entire time the first day. There were only 3 goals on the day, and I had 2 of the goals. So the next day, the coaches mixed up the teams and put the best players together. I was in the first game with the best players. We played our game, we won that game 2-1, and I even scored the winning goal. After the game, we talked to the coaches, and I felt like something could happen for me. But the head coach and the assistant coach were talking progressively to 2 defenders on my team that I could see. They looked like they were super interested in them. And that's something with open tryouts. When you go in, you have no idea what these coaches are looking for. If they're looking for a goalkeeper, defender, midfielder, forward, a versatile player. You don't know what age they're looking for, how tall you need to be. You have no control over that. The only thing that you can do is put your best effort in just to get an opportunity. So the coaches said that they would send out emails if you were selected for preseason. So I went back home, and weeks went by and I didn't receive anything. And I was actually kind of devastated by this. I put in a lot of hard work, I did really well at the tryouts, and I felt like it went unnoticed. Instead of trying again at other open tryouts or trying to get myself other opportunities, I kind of gave up in a way, and I complained about it a lot. I complained about it so much that by the summer of 2017, I talked my own self out of trying to go professional, which was a dream of mine forever. I was giving up. So after I graduated, I went and got a job at an insurance agency, and I got sucked in with the pay and a cool office overlooking the mountains. I felt like I was doing the right thing. But it didn't take long until I was craving to get back on the field again. All that consistent training and improvement was a habit at this point, and I felt like I was getting depressed because I was straying away from my dream to become a professional player. So I started an Instagram and YouTube channel called Nonstop Soccer in February of 2018, which later became Prolific Soccer in 2021, to track my training and my progress. I also wanted to show other players how to train on their own and how to improve on their own. So 6 months later, I actually had a lot of money saved up and I quit my job. I went to countless open tryouts all over the United States. I spent a lot of time and money to be told no 1,000 times by different teams. Which, looking back on it, obviously open tryouts are probably not the way to go. I mean, they provide opportunity, but for the most part, it's super hard, just like I said, because you don't know what they need. You don't know if they need a goalkeeper, defender, midfielder, forward. My opinion would just be to find a good team and get good game film, because you're going to need good game film if you want to become a professional player. You need a good highlight film. And once you do that, go to your old coaches, your friends, your teammates, your agents, and then try and contact teams from there. So I found a team to play on. It was a semi-pro team in the UPSL called Denver Metro, and actually the head coach became one of my most influential contacts in the game and became a very good friend of mine. He coached at the Barcelona Academy in Spain and Brazil and holds a UEFA Pro license, which is actually the highest coaching license available. He actually converted me from a forward to a center back and a fullback, and with the game film that we produced over the season, he actually got me a trial with the Colorado Springs Switchbacks in the second tier of the American Soccer Pyramid, the USL Championship. So I went over to the Switchbacks, and I was basically a practice player there up until the end of the season in 2018. I definitely wasn't at their level yet though. They actually asked me to come to the open tryouts the following season, and I went to the open tryouts to prove myself that I could play on this team. But ultimately, I didn't make the Switchbacks team. I went and played for their U23 team, the Pride Switchbacks, in the USL2, which is actually the 4th division in the US Soccer Pyramid. I was doing well with the U23s. I was having a really good season. I had good highlights that I added into my highlight film, and about halfway through the season, my old coach from Denver Metro called me and said that the Slovenian first division team had seen my highlight film and he'd set up a trial for me in 3 weeks' time. I was so excited, and I booked the flight that night, and then I was off to Slovenia. It was a long day of travel. I went from Colorado to Chicago to Germany, then to Italy, Trieste, Italy, where Jordi then picked me up at Trieste, Italy, and we went to Kranj, Slovenia. And after that, I had a little nap in the afternoon, but I had to play in an 11v11 match that night. So I went and played the match, and I was trying out as a center back, and we actually ended up winning our game 2-0. It was a pretty good day, but I was exhausted from my day of travel. The following day, we had a technical and fitness session in the morning, and then we had an 11v11 match in the afternoon, and I absolutely got wrecked in the 11v11 match. Some dude went cleats up on me and my knee blew up to the size of a balloon, and I couldn't train anymore. I had booked my trip for 1 week, and I had only been there for 2 days, and then I got injured. But I was staying with another player that my old coach brought in as well. We were staying in the city, and I watched the rest of the trial play out for him. At this point in my career, I knew it was not the end, and I was dead set on receiving a contract offer from anywhere. I even remember the other player that I was staying with, his name was Victor. He was asking me how I stayed so positive that I got injured, on trial, and I came from the US all the way to Slovenia. And I said that I had no control over that. I was grateful for the opportunity, and I was grateful to even have the chance to be here in Slovenia, to have the opportunity to try out in front of these coaches. And that I could not control what happened to me, and I had to deal with what I had happened to me in a positive manner. I didn't want to be negative or down on myself just because I got mad at something that I couldn't control. I was watching the rest of the trial play out, and it turns out that Victor was actually selected to go into preseason with the team. And later on, he was actually offered a contract. I was so happy for him, and I knew that my time would come soon as well. Alright, so I got home and I had to recover for about a month because my knee was super swollen. But instead of doing nothing, I was actually speaking to an old club coach of mine, the last coach that I had before I went to college. And he actually got me in contact with the coach from the Milwaukee Torrent. I was talking to the coach, and he told me to come to open tryouts in July, and I had just recovered from my knee injury in June, so I had just about a month to get back into shape. So this time it was a little bit different. I was still going to open tryouts, but I actually had a contact with the head coach before time going into the open tryout. So I ended up trying out as a center back. I had a great tryout, and I actually ended up making the team. So I moved from Colorado to Wisconsin to play in the Members Cup from July to October of 2019. This was yet again another challenging season for me. We had really good players, but there were big egos at play, and it felt like a pretty exclusive environment. I also didn't get much playing time, and when I did, I didn't feel like myself. I didn't feel comfortable at all. I started letting all these outside forces get in my head, and I started thinking just like I did at the Rapids Academy all those years ago. I didn't want to make mistakes, I didn't want to let my teammates down, and I wanted to impress the coach, so this led me to not being confident and not playing for myself. We ended up mid-table that season, and like I said, I didn't get to play much, but they did say that they wanted me back for the following season, so I was only thinking about next season, and I started training individually immediately after that season ended. Even though with all my experience, everything that I've been through, I still found a way to get in my own head, and my performance suffered. I suffered mentally, and I wasn't even aware of how much it was affecting me until after the season ended. I felt so much happier coming back home, training with my friends, training with teams that I've played with before, and I felt confident and I felt in the groove. So I started to notice that, and I tried to fix that in my individual training. If I started to have a rough time or I was making too many mistakes, to just fix that in my own brain and to attack it right away so that I wasn't negative and started to be more positive. And then came 2020, and COVID-19 shut the whole world down. Everybody's seasons got canceled, and it was insane. But I knew that everybody was dealing with the same thing that I was. It was just another test that life was throwing at us, and I was crushed about not having a season, but we had to continue forward. It gave me a chance to improve a lot individually, and this is where me and Yuri started to train every day during COVID. And this is where we made prolific soccer a consistent thing. We would post our drills or our training on a daily basis. And we actually made prolific soccer into something big, and that's all I've ever wanted, is to inspire players and to show them how to improve on their own or with their other teammates. We were having a lot of fun with it, and I was becoming super confident in my abilities, and I knew that the following season, if it did come, I wanted to come in as a leader, which is what I did. 2021 finally came around. Yuri and I both went to the Milwaukee Torrent. I became captain of the team, which is what I wanted from the start. We had a great team and a great group of guys that all worked for each other. We actually ended up winning our conference and going into the semifinals of playoffs in Minneapolis, but we ultimately lost to a good team in Cleveland. This season, I proved to myself that I could come back stronger mentally and help lead a team into doing great things. I was having fun again and playing for myself, and I had good highlights that season, so I put another highlight film together, and I even got an agent, so things were coming together really slowly. And now, thanks to the support of my friends and family, myself for quitting and then not quitting again, and the help of my agent, I'm going to be playing in a different country this season so I can go improve myself again, so I can continue to play at the highest level possible. So that's what I wish I would have known when I was younger. I notice it more now. I'm more in control of my feelings and emotions, and it helps me on and off the field. But it has to be a daily practice. And now that I'm standing in the parking lot of the field of where I used to play high school soccer, you can't really see it because there's snow on the field, but that's something that I would tell my younger self, is that you can notice it when it's there, when you have that negative thought in your head, when that little voice in your head is telling you, no, you're not good enough, you're making too many mistakes, you're letting your teammates down, your coach thinks you suck, whatever it is. You have to notice it when it's there and work on controlling your emotions to become more positive. Just like how it is in Star Wars, don't go to the dark side, stay on the light side. Don't let your anger, hate, and resentment lead you down a dark path. It's like that old saying, it's really hard to beat somebody that really never gives up. So if you're somebody that struggles with performance anxiety, or you're always worried about making mistakes or impressing your coach, you can do these techniques right here. You can take a deep breath to control yourself, or you can close your eyes, and once you open them, you have to let that emotion go. Become more positive. And it only takes a second or two, and it will improve your performance. You have to stay present in the moment. So like I said, you have to be aware of your negative self-talk. I'm pretty sure you can never fully eliminate your negative self-talk, but you can be aware of it in that moment so that you can replace the negativity with positivity. And that, I guarantee, will increase your performance. So that's the overall message of this video, is to get better mentally every single day so that when times get rough, you're not just gonna give up. Too many times in the story, I was too set on my end goal and it would stress me out. You need to focus on the process and not so much the end goal. As long as you're doing the work, with every little step you take, your goal will eventually happen for you. So let go of your expectations, your parents' expectations, your coach's expectations, and just put in the work. Alright guys, thanks for sticking with me through this video. I hope you enjoyed the story. I hope you get a better understanding of where I'm coming from and where I'm headed. And if you guys enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up. Subscribe down below for weekly training videos. See you guys next time.